used to make, these are the substances, which one is used to make food containers. So we have aluminum food containers because aluminum is having a protective oxide layer which resists corrosion. Add to a blast furnace to remove impurities for production of iron. So we add calcium carbonate because calcium carbonate decompose to calcium oxide, which is basic oxide, react with silicon oxide to form a slag. The main constraint of a natural gas, methane, is there, which is CH4. Cause acid rain. Acid rain is due to the sulfur dioxide, which is released from sulfur containing fuel. A gas which bleaches the damp litmus paper, that's a chlorine gas, and a gas which contribute to a climate change. So methane is having a greater greenhouse factor as compared to that of carbon dioxide. So moving on to the next question. The table gives some information about four different particles A, B, C, and D. Complete the table. Again, you can use a screen annotation to complete this table. So here electrons are more, protons are less, so it will be a negative -1. Because it's a neutral atom, the number of electron and protons are same. And no, not the full one. I will discuss the second. Give two particles from a table which are isotopes. So which two particles are the isotope? The term isotope means they have the same proton number but different neutron number. So you can see they have the same number of protons but different neutrons. The element Z is in the same group of a periodic table as A, and it is less reactive. Identify Z. So Z and A are in the same. So it means A belongs to group 1. How we identify A belongs to group 1? Because it's one electron in the outermost shell. And what is actually A? Because 2, 8 and 1, it means A is sodium. And for group 1, as we go down the group, the size increase, so they can easily lose electron, so reactivity also increases. So above sodium we have lithium, and below sodium we have potassium. But they mention element Z is in the same group, which is less reactive. So to be a less reactive, it should be lithium. C is unreactive. So why C is unreactive? Because it has a full outer shell electrons, complete outer shell electrons, or it is a noble gas. With full outer electrons, it does not tend to react. In the next question, copper to nitrate decompose when heated. Two gases, oxygen and nitrogen dioxide, are and a solid was made in the reaction. When we heat metal nitrate, like such as copper nitrate, it will produce metal oxide plus nitrogen dioxide, which is a brown gas, and then oxygen. A sample of copper to nitrate was decomposed by using the apparatus. Complete the chemical equation for the reaction. So first, the substance which is produced is copper oxide, and then we have to balance. So we need 2 copper, and what about nitrogen? What about the nitrogen? It's 4, so already balanced, and the oxygen is also balanced. The only oxygen gas is collected at X. What is the reason for that? Because when it is releasing oxygen and oxygen and nitrogen dioxide is water soluble, dissolve in water. That's why we don't obtain, like, this water will become acidic, because when uh, non-metal oxide or acidic oxide dissolve, it will make the solution acidic. So nitrogen dioxide is acidic, so it will dissolve in water, reacted with sodium hydroxide, and oxygen is there. So the answer here, the nitrogen dioxide is acidic oxide, which react with NaOH, sodium hydroxide, or neutralize. Nitrogen dioxide and other oxides of nitrogen are formed in the car engine. Explain how nitrogen dioxide is formed in the car engine. So what we have, these nitrogen and oxygen both are from air. We don't have nitrogen and oxygen in the fuel. So both are from the air, react at high temperature or due to the spark in the engine, produce oxides of nitrogen. So they enter the engine from the air, and what happened at high temperature, they react with each other or due to the electrical spark. These are some answers. So due to the electrical spark, it produces oxides of nitrogen. Okay, in this question, a teacher heated 18.8 grams of copper to nitrate. Calculate the number of moles of copper to nitrate. So what formula we will use to calculate the number of moles? Which formula if we know the mass in gram?
Mass divided by atomic mass.
Mass divided by molar mass, like molecular mass.
Yeah, molar mass. Yeah.
Because here the copper to nitrate is a molecule, so molecular mass, relative molecular mass. So mass in gram divided by relative molecular mass. Mass in gram is 18.8. And what about copper to nitrate? The formula of copper to nitrate is CuNO3 in a bracket 2. So copper is there 64 plus nitrogen is there 14 multiplied by 2 plus oxygen is there 16 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2 6. So what is the total? 188. So 18.8 divided by 188, we will get 0.1. So these are the moles of copper to nitrate. Then they are asking calculate the maximum number of moles of oxygen that could be made. So for knowing the oxygen, because nothing is given related to oxygen, so you have to use a ratio. And when you take the ratio, you can clearly see the ratio between copper to nitrate and oxygen is 2:1.
2 to 1. 0.1 times.
So when we work out the ratio for copper to nitrate and oxygen, the ratio is 2:1. So if we have 0.1, then it will be x cross multiply. So this will be 0.1 divided by 2, which is equals to 0.05. Then calculate the maximum volume of oxygen. So if we need a volume of oxygen, but in cm cube, but when you use the formula, volume of a gas is equals to moles multiplied by 24. That will give you answer in dm cube. So 0.05 divided by 24. What is the answer in dm cube? 1.2 decimeter cube. But we need the final answer to be in cm cube. So to convert dm cube into cm cube, we'll multiply by 1000. So it will be 1200 centimeter cubes. The next part, in this question, a sample of copper to nitrate was dissolved in water to form an aqueous solution. The aqueous solution was split into 3 portions. A separate test was done on each as shown. When we add sodium hydroxide is basically a test for positive ion. It gives a light blue precipitate because of copper hydroxide is formed. When zinc powder is added, Because zinc is more reactive. Like you have a copper nitrate solution, when you add zinc, which is more reactive, so it will displace this copper. As a result, it will form zinc nitrate, which is a colorless solution, and it will form a brown solid, which is copper. And ammonia gas is produced. How we can test an ammonia gas? So we add, if because that's basically a nitrate test for nitrate, we add sodium hydroxide, then aluminum powder, and then heat. So that will release ammonia gas. This is not the test for zinc, this is a displacement reaction. There is no, the test for zinc is the same. You add sodium hydroxide, it will give white precipitate which dissolve in excess. This is not about the test. The second part is related to a displacement reaction. Like zinc is able to displace copper from its compound. So give a formula of a light blue precipitate which are formed, because it form hydroxide when these precipitates are there. So that will be the formula CuOH in a bracket 2, copper 2 hydroxide. Explain the changes seen in test 2. So means why we see these changes, why these changes are seen in test 2. And it's of 3 marks. So what is the reason for that? Basically what happened, zinc is more reactive than copper. So zinc is able to displace or remove the copper from its compound, and the brown solid is the copper metal which is formed. So zinc more reactive. So zinc displaces copper as it is more reactive. So now the solution turned colorless because of zinc nitrate. And the brown solid is the copper metal. Moving on to the next question, identify two reagents that must be added to copper 2 nitrate for test 3. Because test 3, we want to release ammonia gas. So basically in a nitrate test for nitrate, when we add sodium hydroxide and aluminum powder, it will release ammonia gas. So we should add sodium hydroxide and then aluminum powder, or you can mention the reagent name. So aluminum and sodium hydroxide and heat. So they are asking for reagent. Heat is the condition for this reaction to proceed. But the reagent, the chemicals which you add, it's sodium hydroxide and aluminum. And you have to supply heat to so that it will decompose and release ammonia gas. Next, copper 2 nitrate can be made by reacting copper 2 carbonate with nitric acid. So when copper 2 carbonate react with nitric acid, this can also form copper nitrate. One of the product is carbon dioxide. Write a chemical equation for reaction of copper 2 carbonate with nitric acid. So when they mention a chemical equation, it should be balanced chemical equation. So what will be the equation for this reaction? LCA copper carbonate CuCO3 reacted with HNO3. This will form salt, nitric acid form nitrate salt, sulfuric acid gives sulfate salt, and hydrochloric acid gives chloride salt. Salt, water, and carbon dioxide, or salt, carbon dioxide, and water. Then we have to balance to nitrate we need. Then the equation is balanced. The carbon dioxide, yeah, that's right. The carbon dioxide is added to air by living thing. Name a chemical process by which living thing adding a carbon dioxide. How we are increasing the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere? process of respiration. Carbon dioxide is removed from the air by plants. Name the process by which the plants are removing carbon dioxide. That is by photosynthesis. In question 4, a sulfuric acid is made in industrially by four-step process. Sulfur is burned in air to produce sulfur dioxide. Sulfur dioxide is converted into sulfur trioxide. Sulfur trioxide reacted with concentrated sulfuric acid to form oleum, and oleum is diluted with water to produce sulfuric acid. Some sulfur is obtained by mining. Name one other major source of sulfur. Yes, underground beds of sulfur, that's true. Sulfur containing fossil fuel, that's also correct. Crude oil directly, yeah, sulfur containing fossil fuel is a better term. Instead, zinc sulfide, it can be from zinc sulfide as well, like sulfide. From petroleum, from crude oil, they mention that. So fossil fuels are also sulfur containing fossil fuel. When they mention sulfur is obtained by mining, so here they refer that underground beds of sulfur and zinc sulfide. That's why you will not find in a marking scheme that answer of extracting from the sulfur bed or zinc sulfide is there, because the process of a mining include zinc sulfide as well as the solid yellow solid sulfur. What is the name of a process by which sulfuric acid is made industrially? So we call that as a contact process. And manufacture of ammonia is called a Haber's process. Then describe the conversion of sulfur dioxide into sulfur trioxide in step 2. In your answer include a chemical equation, essential condition. It's a 5 marks. So it is having a greater weightage. So what are the reaction? Basically, this reaction is reversible reaction which occur around 450 or 1 to 2 atmospheric pressure. 450 degrees centigrade, 1 to 2 atmospheric pressure, and V2O5 vanadium pentoxide is the catalyst. And what happened? The sulfur dioxide reacted with oxygen to form sulfur trioxide, and the reaction is reversible, means the reactant can form a product can decompose, form back the reactant. When concentrated sulfuric acid is added to glucose, basically what happened when we add a concentrated sulfuric acid to glucose, it decomposes into carbon, which is a black solid, and it releases water. And this technique in which the water is removed from the substance, what we call that as dehydration, like removal of the water molecule. What is removed from glucose in this reaction? So what is removed from glucose? The water molecule is removed from the glucose. Then name the black solid produced in this reaction. So the carbon is actually the black solid which is produced in this reaction. And keep in mind, this is only valid for concentrated sulfuric acid. Like If I have a dilute sulfuric acid and I add that to a glucose, this reaction will not occur. Concentrated sulfuric acid is a good dehydrating agent. The gas of hydrogen sulfide is produced when concentrated sulfuric acid is added to solid potassium iodide. The reaction involves oxidation. What is the meaning of oxidation? The term oxidation, remember from oil, O stands for oxidation, I stands for is, and L stands for loss. So basically oxidation is a loss of electrons. Then you can use a complete screen annotation to complete this dot and cross diagram. So in a dot and cross diagram, yeah, that's right. So we have hydrogen and we have sulfur. Hydrogen is having one electron, so it will share one. So sulfur will share one. Hydrogen share one, sulfur share one. And sulfur belongs to group 6, so it share 2. Overall, it will share 2, so unshared will be 4. So there will be 8 electrons in the outer shell of sulfur and only 2 electrons in the outer shell of hydrogen, because only one shell is there in hydrogen, and that is the shell 1. Hydrogen sulfide is a simple molecular structure, has a simple molecular. Explain why the hydrogen sulfide has a low boiling point. So boiling point or melting point is refers to the force between the molecule. So weak force between the molecules, a small amount of energy required to separate them. So a small amount of energy is required to separate the molecules from each other. It's not about breaking the bond within the molecule. It's like the two hydrogen sulfide molecules are there, and energy required to separate the two hydrogen sulfide molecule. Like this is one molecule of hydrogen sulfide, and this one is another molecule of hydrogen sulfide. So because the weak force is there between them, so we need a very small amount of energy to separate them. That's why it is having a low boiling point. In this question, dilute sulfuric acid reacted with aqueous sodium hydrogen carbonate in a neutralization reaction. In a titration, zero point 0.2 mole of aqueous sodium hydrogen carbonate was neutralized 20 cm cube of 1.15 mole per dm cube sulfuric acid. Calculate the number of moles of dilute sulfuric acid in the titration. So if we know the volume of the solution and we know concentration, so how to get the moles? So concentration, yeah, the concentration into volume, the concentration, but the volume should be in dm cube. So that is the concentration is given 0.15 and the volume is 20, which is divided by 1000. What's the final answer? 0.003. Then the number of moles of sodium hydrogen carbonate, the number of moles of sodium hydrogen carbonate, because
Ratio.
yeah, we'll use the ratio. We know the concentration, but there's no other thing other than concentration, so it's incomplete to substitute in a formula. We'll use a ratio between the sulfuric acid and sodium hydrogen carbonate. The ratio between them is 1 is to 2. So if we have 0.003 moles, this will be X. That means it will be twice of the original one, so it will be 0.006 moles. And then the last part, they are asking for the volume of hydrogen carbonate, sodium hydrogen carbonate. So you have the moles, which is 0.006, and you have the concentration. So you need moles. You need a volume. So concentration is moles divided by volume. So volume will be mole divided by concentration. So moles are 0.006 and the concentration is 0.2. What's the answer for this? 0.006 divided by 0.2. This will give you the volume, but that volume is in dm cube. But the answer you have in cm cube, so you'll multiply by 1000. So when you multiply by 1000, this will be 30 centimeter cube or cm cube of sodium hydrogen carbonate is required for this reaction. Hydrogen gas reacted with iodine in the equation as shown. The reaction is reversible and can reach equilibrium. What is meant by term equilibrium? It's 2 marks. So what is the meaning of equilibrium? The term equilibrium means when the rate of forward and backward reaction is same, or forward and backward reaction occur at the same rate and the concentration remain unchanged. Like it does not mean like I will have 2 grams of reactant and I would have 2 grams of product. That is not the meaning of equilibrium. Equilibrium means even though their amounts are different, maybe this is 2 and this one is 7, but when reactant form a product at the same time, the product decompose and form back the reactant, so there is no change in their concentration or amount. So rates of forward and backward are same, and there is no change in concentration of reactant or product. The graph shows how the pressure affects the yield of hydrogen iodide for two different temperatures. Explain why the yield at 500 does not change as the pressure increase. When we are changing the pressure, the yield does not change. What could be the reason for that? So here you can see 2 moles of reactants and 2 moles of a product or for a gas. So because there are equal number of moles on both sides or same number of moles, it means the pressure will not affect. Even I change the pressure, the yield will be same, or the rate of the reaction will affect, but the amount of the product will remain same. Because increase in pressure shift the equilibrium toward the side where number of moles are less. So in this example, both sides we have the same number of moles, so that's why the pressure does not affect. How could you what can you conclude from a difference in the yield at two different temperature? Is the forward reaction endothermic or exothermic? I increase the temperature, I'm getting a lower yield.
Isothermic.
So it means the forward reaction is exothermic because increasing in temperature is reducing the yield or amount of product. So what you can conclude from this graph, that the forward reaction is exo because increase in temperature lowers the yield or amount of product. Or you can mention this as well. The graph shows how the concentration of hydrogen iodide changes after a hydrogen gas and iodine gas are mixed together in a sealed container. When is the rate fastest? So which position? Always, because in the beginning because rate of the reaction is actually the represented by a gradient or a slope. So you can clearly see when I draw a tangent, in the beginning the tangent is having it's a steeper tangent, so it is having the highest value or greater value of a gradient. That's why the rate of the reaction will be faster at the beginning. Then the reaction was repeated. The reaction was repeated at the same temperature and pressure, but in the presence of catalyst. Draw a graph on the same axis how the concentration. So what will be the graph if we use a screen annotation to show how the graph will change if we use a catalyst? So it will be steeper. Yes, it will be like above. That's right. Then the next part, a mixture of hydrogen gas and iodine was allowed to reach equilibrium. Increase in pressure on the gas increases its concentration. State and explain the effect on increasing a pressure on the rate. So what will be the effect on the rate when we increase the pressure? So basically when we increase the pressure, the gas molecules come closer to each other. So they will have more collision or greater number of collision. So the rate of the reaction will increase. So rate increases, and because of 2 marks, we have to explain why the rate increased. The particle will be closer to each other, so they will have a greater number of collisions. State and explain the effect on increasing a state and explain the effect of increasing a temperature. So when we increase the temperature, what will happen? The rate will increase because particles will have greater collision, or greater number of particles have energy more than activation energy. And the greater number of particles have energy more than activation energy. The term activation energy means the minimum possible energy for the reaction to proceed, or the energy at which the reaction started. So rate of the reaction increase as the molecule gain more energy. They will have more kinetic energy, move faster, more chance of successful collision, and greater energy than EA. EA stands for activation energy. In exam, when you mention or write the answer, try to write the whole like EA you can, but it's better write the term activation energy. Ethane is a member of homologous series of alkane, and ethanol is a homologous series member of alcohol. Alkanes are hydrocarbon. What is meant by a term hydrocarbon? The definition of the term hydrocarbon: compound with carbon and hydrogen only, these are called hydrocarbon. Then what is the journal formula of alkane and alcohols? The journal formula which we can use to find any member of alkane and any member of alcohol. So for alkane it is CnH2n plus 2. What about alcohols? The journal formula for alcohol: CnH2n plus 1 OH, where N is the number of the carbon. The two characteristics state two characteristics other than having a same journal formula for a member of homologous series. So they have similar chemical properties, physical properties gradually change. Each member differ by CH2. They have the same functional group. Yeah, that's one. And
Each member differed by CH2.
Each member, yeah, next member differ by CH2. And same chemical properties, physical properties gradually changes. Same method of preparation also. Ethane can react with chlorine in a substitution reaction. Give essential condition for a substitution reaction. We need ultraviolet light or UV. Draw the structure of organic product formed by substitution of one hydrogen atom in ethane with chlorine and show all the bonds. You can use a screen annotation to predict what will be the product form when ethane react with chlorine. You can use any part of the screen. It's not necessary it should be at the space. You can draw any part on the screen. Yeah, that's right. The substitution, so there should be one chlorine should be there because it we know we want a product in which one of the hydrogen is replaced. So any one of them you should replace by chlorine. Monochloroethane, yeah, that's right. And the last one,
Hydrochloric acid.
name the product for the substitution. So between ethane and chlorine, so that does not contain a carbon, so that is HCl. Hydrogen chloride gas will be there. Then the last one, uh, a minute left, so I'll share another link and continue this discussion because I will not be able to complete this page. So I'll share another link.